Welcome to a CSIS online event. My name is Heather Conley. I direct our Europe, Russia, and Eurasian program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Today's discussion is about Belarus and whether it has reached a tipping point. We have seen 9 extraordinary days in Belarus, an election that was neither free nor fair. We've seen incredible brutality and violence exacted by Belarusian security services on very innocent demonstrators. We have seen incredibly inspiring scenes from cities and towns across Belarus, culminating in Sunday's March of Freedom, which was the single largest demonstration in Belarusian history, and certainly probably one of the largest in the region itself. This morning, we had hoped to bring to you Ambassador Valery Zepcalo. Ambassador Zepcalo was a presidential candidate in the presidential election. In July, he fled Belarus for Moscow. He's right now somewhere near an airport, and we had hoped that he'd come. We're hoping that he will join us later. He and his family, though, are safely now in Ukraine. And if he comes to us, we promise we will bring him to this conversation. But very thankfully, we can continue our conversation because with us is Dr. Vladislav Inozemtsev. Slava is a wonderful colleague here at CSIS. He is a non-resident senior associate with the Europe, Russia, and Eurasia program, but he has led a distinguished career as an economist and as a prominent reformer. He is director and founder of the Center for Post-Industrial Studies in Moscow. He is a well-regarded professor and has written so many scholarly articles looking at both the economy, but also the political economy. So with our audience's indulgence, we weren't exactly starting the way we thought we were. We were going to turn to Ambassador Zepcalo to tell us the latest and the greatest in what's happening today in Belarus. We hope he can join us, but instead we'll start our conversation with Slava, and we invite you to participate in this conversation as well. And when you registered for the event, there was a Google Doc. You can ask us questions, and we're certainly delighted to bring them into part of the conversation. So let's begin and talk about sort of the stock taking, Slava, what we've seen. And I think he's come, well, see, just when you start a conversation, there he is. Ambassador Zepcalo, are you with us?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Well, we are delighted that you are with us. I'm going to give you the briefest of introductions because I don't know how long you'll be with us.
Hold on, please, since, just I will try to use earphones.
Oh, absolutely. Why don't you take your time, and I'm going to introduce you properly. Ambassador Zepcalo began his career as a diplomat. He was the first deputy minister of foreign affairs in Belarus in 1994.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Welcome. I'm just introducing you briefly of your diplomatic career. He served as Belarusian ambassador to the United States and Mexico from 1997 to 2002, but has been most recently the founder of Belarus High Tech Park, an entrepreneur, and most recently a presidential candidate. Ambassador Zepcalo, while we have you, tell us what's happening today. You are in Ukraine. Your family is safely with you. Tell me what the scene looks like right now to you as far as potentially a transfer of power to opposition figures, to the Coordination Council. Give us the latest.
Yes, actually, I'm trying to travel now from Kiev to Warsaw. We are traveling all the countries that surrounds Belarus, but you're right. Well, there is an attempt to make a transfer of power. And as you see, Lukashenko made a big fraud as a result of presidential elections. And people don't believe the results of the so-called presidential elections, where Lukashenko announced that he got 80% of public support. but we are able to see that there are no people that would come out to the streets to. Sorry, you know, just I'm trying to do several things at the same time. So, чё, движемся? So. Lukashenko, you know, just falsified the results of the elections, and that is very clear because otherwise we would see a lot of people coming out to the street to support him, but we were not able to see anybody that would support Lukashenko. We were able to see only the brutal force that he used to stop peaceful demonstrators, peaceful people that came out to the street to disagree with the results of the falsified elections.
Ambassador, we saw yesterday that President Lukashenko went to a factory to his supportive base. He was booed. He was clearly rattled, and he said the very startling statement: "There will not be another election unless you kill me." The challenge here is, how do we get to this peaceful transfer of power? What is the next steps for the opposition, other than this coordination council of human rights activists, civil society leaders? What are the next steps to encourage this free and fair election that is so needed now?
Well, I think a lot of things depend now on the behavior of the world community. First of all, democratic countries, because our vision is that the Western countries should not recognize the results of the presidential elections, and they should recognize Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as the only legitimate leader, and which is actually true. As you know, Russia recognized Lukashenko, and they Putin congratulated him with a landslide in victory and falsified results of the election. And that's what Western countries should not do. You know, just if it's okay, you know, just I'm trying to get through all these procedures at the airport, so I'm not maybe able to concentrate perfectly well on the question that you asked.Maybe I can join you in like 5 minutes, if you don't mind.
Well, why don't, that's fine. You are a multitasking master. So we are in awe of you. You take 5 minutes. I'm going to turn to Slava and we'll keep the conversation. And when you're ready to come back in, you go ahead and come back in. That'll be great.
Yeah,
thank you. Thanks so much. Wonderful. Slava, so, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. You follow the Belarusian economy quite closely. What does it mean to you as you're seeing factories now go on strike? Now, some of the main factories are partial strikes. The state workers are so beholden to Lukashenko for their salaries. This is a very scary time. But the Belarusian economy has been sinking for quite some time, pre-pandemic, pre this election. Where does the economy play into Lukashenko's longevity?
Look, I would say that, as I mentioned several times already, that the outcome of the presidential elections was, for me, it was quite obvious. And even the dissatisfaction of the Belarusian people of Mr. Lukashenko was also quite obvious for several reasons. First of all, you mentioned already economy, and Belarusian economy was not in very good shape for years, has been not in very good shape for years. It was heavily subsidized by Russia through low energy prices, first of all. The subsidies, no one actually knows the exact figure, but the estimates range from around $6 to $8 billion a year. So just between 12 and 15% of Belarusian GDP. So that's quite a huge figure. Also, what I would like to say was that Lukashenko for years have promised Belarusian people some kind of increase in living standards, and his slogan was that he should guarantee average salary of $500 per month. And he failed actually once and again to achieve this goal. After every election since 2009, 2010, sorry, devaluation followed of Belarusian ruble, and so the wages in dollar terms went down once and again. In current situation, I would say economic issues are not so much important in provoking this kind of dissent, because first of all, I would say the organization of the people, this kind of mass mobilization, it originated not so much from economic action. It originated first of all from the reaction to pandemic, because Mr. Lukashenko neglected the very fact of pandemic for weeks and months, and the people were forced to unite somehow, to organize themselves using the social networks for supplying hospitals with all necessary ammunition and all necessary drugs, to support doctors and nurses. And this was actually a kind of self-organization for survival. And this was the first step in what we saw after the election. And Lukashenko, by the end of last year, as I believe, he was quite popular leader. First of all, because Belarus doesn't want to become a part of the Russian Federation, as Mr. Putin actually, maybe he not insisted, but he was quite strongly imposing the idea of even closer integration during the last months and years. And so Lukashenko, as a prominent supporter of Belarusian sovereignty and independence, was quite popular. But during the start of the year, because of pandemic and because of economic issues and because of his actual cruelty, not only after the elections, but before them as well, several contenders were jailed, a lot of street rallies were dispersed, and so I would say around 600 political detainees were in Belarusian jails even before the elections. So all this produced such a result we saw in recent 9 days.
So I don't know whether Valerie is through the airport hoops yet. I'll keep Slava keep on focusing on.
Yeah,
on
look, what I would like to say, you posed to Valerie a question about what the opposition should do, what opposition's next move should be. I'm not a spokesperson for the opposition leaders, definitely, but I would say that now, of course, the economic impact, the strikes, the trade union movement is very important, because actually Lukashenko's regime was not only politically, I would say, authoritarian or totalitarian regime. It was a kind of commercial state, as I argue, because Lukashenko actually concentrated not only political powers in his hands, but also economic authority as well. And he misused Belarusian economy for various reasons, for personal self-enrichment and for controlling all the elements of the life of the society. So therefore, I would say the workers' actions are of very great importance, because if, for example, Belarus or oil processing factories will stop for weeks, it will actually destroy the Belarusian economy, and it will put the authorities in a very dead end. And to this kind of action, he should and he would find somehow some kind of response, even more. Once again, I will repeat, it's more important for him to have economy running than the society subject to him.
No, I think it's a very important point, and it also raises a lot of we're getting lots of questions from our audience. The bear in the room, sort of, how does Russia react and respond to this? Valerie mentioned that, of course, the Kremlin recognized and congratulated Lukashenko for his victory. That, I'm sure, did not sit well with the Belarusian society that, believes very strongly this was not free or fair. But Russia has a lot of economic equities, potentially, in Belarus, although their integration efforts economically have not been clearly fully proven. There are interests in there. I'm sure there are Russian business interests that would like to use this opportunity to perhaps seize some of those assets. Slava, help us understand Russia's economic benefit and gain should it take this opportunity to increase its interests.
Look, I would say that we should distinguish between Russian political and economic interests here, because Russia is much more politically interested in Belarus and geopolitically than in economic sense. Because economically, of course, Belarus depends on Russia quite strongly. First of all, from the Russian imports of energy resources, and of course for the Russian market to sell some of the agricultural produce and industrial produce as well. But economically, I would say the Chinese interest shouldn't be neglected, because China is one of the biggest investors in Belarusian economy. They organized a free trade area near the Minsk airport and invested a lot of money there. And in economic issues, Chinese are even, I would say, more important to Belarus than the Russians are, because the Russians they just want to have a status quo, like controlling the pipeline system, allowing them to send their gas and oil to Europe. But the Russian investment in Belarusian real sector, in Belarusian industry, is not very huge. So if you look on Russia, I would say we should actually emphasize on political developments and on political influence. And I'm absolutely sure that Russia will not intervene militarily, because it's too costly for Mr. Putin these days. But at the same time, during the transfer of power, when Lukashenko leaves, and I'm absolutely sure that he will leave, so between Lukashenko leaves and a new president, not a temporary president like Ms. Tikhanovskaya said she will be, but a new presidential elections. So between this and new presidential elections, I think the Russians will influence very heavily any developments in Belarus.
Valerie, I think you've turned your microphone
Yes.
back on, so oh, wonderful. I hope you can hear us. I don't know if you want to turn your video on, or you may not be in a place where you can, so don't worry about it if you cannot. Let me turn to you.
I'm trying to, but just. Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll take you just if we could hear you. You were in Moscow. You fled to Moscow in July after two other presidential candidates were imprisoned. There you are. And a lot of our listeners and viewers are very interested in your take on what are Russia's next step here. Slava said, look, it's too costly. This is geopolitically important to Belarus. What do you think Russia's steps will take? Lukashenko called Putin twice. They've sort of talked about and invoking the CSTO, the Collective Security Treaty Organization. What do you think Russia's response will be to all of this? Do they know how to respond to this?
I'm not sure about that. Traditionally, Russia supports the leaders. I mean, not the leaders, but the formal leaders of different countries. And they congratulate, first of all, those who were leading the country before, unless there are no clear signals that the leader would go out. So we cannot compare the situation in Belarus with the situation, let's say, with Ukraine, because in Ukraine, the situation, ethnical and religious and cultural situation was much more diversified. And you know that people voted for different leaders in the western part of Ukraine and in the eastern part of Ukraine. As we remember, you know, just the western part of Ukraine, they voted for Yushchenko, for Mrs. Tymoshenko, Julia Tymoshenko, and the eastern part was for Yanukovych. In Belarus, if you look at how people vote, they vote the same in Grodno and Brest, which are the western part of the country, and in Mogilev and Gomel, which are the eastern part of the countries, the eastern cities. So the results of the elections are more or less the same. So Belarus is more monogenic society, much more than Ukraine. So the reason, one of the reasons why Russia intervened into the Ukrainian internal situation, because the geopolitical and cultural orientation of different regions of Ukraine were different. And in Belarus, whom they would like to fight for. If they would bring troops inside Belarus territory, they would face just peaceful people that would like to change Lukashenko's regime, that are very tired of him, and they would like to see some differences, big differences in Belarus. I would disagree with Vyacheslav, who says that China has big interest in Belarus. China doesn't have any investments in Belarus. It's just debt with Chinese equipment, or if even Geely, the company that they had built in Belarus, the Chinese automobile manufacturers, was a debt from the side of Belarus government. So Lukashenko is very illiterate in terms of the modern economy. So he thought that, you know, just if he would take a debt and China would give you some equipment, where then you would get money to pay back. And Chinese, they demand to pay back the money that Lukashenko owes them. So, you know, their next interest may be the company in Soligorsk, which is, how to say, potassium, the producer of potassium. And that's, they have a big eye on it. So if Belarus government will not be able to pay debt, which is huge now to China, so they may ask to get instead in exchange the Belarus potassium fields, which is a very, very valuable asset for Belarus economy at these days. But Russia is different. Yeah, Russia has their geopolitical interest, and they would not like to see the troops of NATO standing near Smolensk, near Russian borders, which would be very close to Moscow. So that Russia, I think, would never allow anybody to do. And if they would feel the threat that somebody would move from the West, would move inside the territory of Belarus, they would immediately come to the territory of Belarus, since we don't have any borders, and it would be much more easier for them to bring troops inside the Belarus territory.
Well, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has made it very clear that these reports that Lukashenko said that there were NATO forces amassing on the Polish-Lithuanian border is not true. It's been very clear that that's not the case. But I agree with you. This is a very different situation from Ukraine. You don't see European Union flags flying in Minsk or American flags. You see Belarusian flags. You really see this as a change in leadership, a desire for free and fair elections. But Valerie, would this not be exactly what terrifies those in the Kremlin? Because in Russia, they cannot have free and fair elections. They don't have choice. And in fact, in Khabarovsk, they're seeing where that even their choice was taken away. Do you think that's really the concern, particularly as Russia is facing municipal and regional elections in mid-September, that it's not the geopolitics, it's the implication of choice, or perhaps not? This is about the union and about influencing neighbors.
Yeah, well, we cannot exclude this type of scenario in Russia as well. You know, the rise of the legal consciousness, let me put it this way, is the same or practically the same in Belarus and in Russia. I'm not talking about the practical aspects of it and how they fulfilled in life, but Russians and Belarusians, they study at the universities law, and they are all the time they are said that we have to fulfill the law, we have to honor constitution and legal acts and so on and so forth. And when Belarusians saw that Lukashenko violated completely constitution, that he neglected every law, that he was trying to show that he was the man above the law, just that what Belarusians hated most, that, he showed to Belarus public that he was fighting against corruption, but everybody know that Lukashenko is the most corrupted person in Belarus, that he gave the best pieces of land in Minsk to his friends from Serbia, that he actually is reselling Russian oil and gas, getting it for a lower price and selling it to the West for the world prices, and that he is the most richest person in Belarus. I think that he is the only oligarch, if we look at him and and how he controls the business, illegal business, by the way, bringing some Western goods, Polish apples, for instance, that are under sanctions to Russia. And hold on. I think we're finished. Вероник, опаздываем, пошли скорее. Дети, давайте бегом. Sorry.
No, Valerie, that's perfectly understandable. I want to I know you're literally on the move. I just want a few more questions, and if you have to sign off, we completely understand. A lot of our viewers. Sorry, please go ahead.
Sorry, I have to put mask. They demand to put a mask.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, we want you to be very safe, so you please put that mask on.
No, I think I had just at least once I got coronavirus during the political campaign. Just I lost I couldn't feel the smell of anything, even coffee. And just I'm 100% sure that I.
Well, no, we know how much the pandemic hit Belarus, for sure. Valerie, we're getting a question. Of course, the regime has said that Lukashenko won up to 80%. What do you think the real percentage was on August the 9th? Do you have internal figures that would tell you about how much Svetlana won? Do you have a sense of that?
Yes, sure, because we have several independent online platforms for counting votes, 3 of them, and they were all developed by different people, by different software engineers. And it was obvious that Lukashenko, the real situation was completely different, like if you look at the mirror. In fact, he got 10% and Svetlana got 80%. And it's not about Svetlana only. It's not about Svetlana, but it's more that people voted against Lukashenko, not pro but contra. And these independent platforms show these results, and territorial electoral committees that were that didn't agree to make a fraud. This hold on. Oops. Yeah, these electoral committees that didn't agree to make a fraud, didn't agree to falsify the results, it showed the similar result. It means that Svetlana got approximately 80% and Lukashenko got about 10% of the popular support. So I think that these are the real figures. And, just normally we've got used to the fact that Lukashenko falsified elections previously, adding some 10 or 20% to the results of the popular vote. But this time it was enormous. He added 70%. Nobody, in fact, even counted these votes. And, I know it based on my personal experience when I collected 220,000 signatures in support of myself, and they were just simply thrown to the garbage. They just simply ignored it. And Viktor Babarika, another guy who collected twice as much as myself, 400,000 signatures, and it's necessary, and it was necessary also only to collect 100,000, just 4 times more than it was necessary to collect, and they were also thrown to the garbage. So we know that, he absolutely neglected the real results, and his real, he doesn't, he simply ignored it, and, he just gave instructions of how much the local committees should write down and how much the Central Electorate Committee chairman should announce, and people and people know very well that that she follows all the instruction. The chairman of the Central Electorate Committee follows all the instructions coming out from Lukashenko administration. There is no law, nothing actually, if we look at our presidential campaign. It's really a unique situation in Europe, at least, at least in Europe. Yeah, maybe we can see some other examples in some other countries of Asia, or, I don't know, in Latin America, no, I don't think, maybe Cuba, only just the country that is still remains. Yeah, well, just we are inside.
We're getting some questions. It looks like you're walking in the airplane. I don't know if that's right or not. I don't know how. Okay, so this is my last question, and then we'll let you sit down and take your seat. How does this story end? How does Lukashenko remain? Can you give us sort of hypothesize how Lukashenko leaves Belarus? If he leaves Belarus, what does this look like?
Yeah, well, I think that she will take a plane the same as I am. No, much better, with
So you're asking, you're saying that he may take his own plane. Do you know where that destination will be?
Yes, sure. Yeah, sure. It wouldn't be Russia, definitely, because Russia would deliver him immediately to Belarus authorities, the next authorities. It wouldn't be any European country. So also very understandable, because he would be charged, he would be tried.
So, Valerie, you have been extraordinarily generous with your time. I don't know how you walked through an airport and responded to our questions and managed your family and your children, but we are very, very grateful to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just because it was a delay that, I supposed to come at 3:00 p.m., just 4 times earlier today to Warsaw, but because of some technical reasons, just we are flying only now.
Well, not to worry. You've been a fantastic participant and discussant. Thank you so much. Be safe. We hope we have you back again. Land safely, and we're glad your family is safe as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I was not able to concentrate properly, but
you did great. I don't know how you did it all. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Take care. Slava, the last few minutes, I think we'll wrap this conversation up. I want to talk about the European Union and US reaction to this. Valerie, I think, gave a real challenge to both Europe and the United States to say, look, do not recognize this government, recognize Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, this coordination council, hold standards high. The European Council meets tomorrow in a video conference to contemplate sanctioning those members of the regime that had brutally cracked down on peaceful protesters. It's a little unclear to me what the US response is right now, other than not recognizing the elections, that they were not free and fair. The president has said this is a terrible situation. There's monitoring of the situation, but it doesn't seem to me there's been policy responses by way of additional sanctions or recognizing Svetlana. Where does this go from an EU and US response to these unfolding events?
Look, it's a very good question from my personal point of view, but I'm not a Belarusian citizen, so I don't have a voice here. But I would say that, of course, the best way would be to recognize Ms. Tikhanovskaya victory and recognize her as president-elect. But there are several issues here. First of all, I believe that for doing this, the Europeans should have her own statement first, that she declares herself as a winner. But till now, we just heard that she is ready to become so-called national leader or to assume the role of the national leader, as she said yesterday. And this is actually not equal to assuming the presidency as a winner. So there are some problems here, but definitely I would say that the only way forward is to recognize not her provisional government or her transition council, but herself as a president, and just to try to force her to fulfill her presidential promise to organize a free and fair election in 6 months. So I absolutely exclude the very possibility for Lukashenko's regime to organize such kind of elections. So if we wish to get these elections in some foreseeable future, it's definitely Ms. Tikhanovskaya who can arrange them. That's on one issue. And my point is also that Mr. Putin may become quite tired of Mr. Lukashenko, because this is a kind of a deadlock. And either the situation in Belarus will be really destabilized, or the new government should take office. So therefore, even for Russia's interest is to put an end to this uncertain situation in the neighboring republic.
So Slava, do you think the Kremlin will start identifying another leader that could perhaps replace Lukashenko? Would it look like a little heavy-handed in that, or would they just wait? Should there be new elections to influence those elections directly? I mean, how would that look?
They have no technical issues. They have no technical, I would say, chances or measures to be taken for installing a new president. There is no legitimate figure except maybe of the prime minister who can succeed Mr. Lukashenko if Lukashenko steps down. But I'm not sure that the Belarusian people recognize the guy. So somehow, some kind of provisional government with Lukashenko out of the country may be a solution. But till now, I cannot see that any kind of negotiation of this aimed on forming this kind of government are underway. So therefore, it's quite uncertain these days. We should wait and see.
Tikhanovskaya has called for the security services to switch sides. Do you sense any change in the security services loyalty? You just had Lukashenko provide, I think, 300 awards to the impeccable service of these security services that clearly have tortured these protesters. I mean, do you see any give in that area?
I would say that these people are now in a very complicated situation because there were orders given to them to disperse the crowds. Of course, many of them, first of all, the special services, special police services like OMON, which they called in Russian or Belarusian, they were very cruel and they tortured the prisoners as well. And so definitely I can't imagine that the transfer of power will not result in a lot of I would say court rulings against them and imprisonment definitely. So, but these people, they can also flee, for example, to the same Russia as many Ukrainian police people did after the Euromaidan, after the Revolution of Dignity. But nevertheless, definitely most of them will switch sides. And it's actually, not everyone was so cruel to the people. So there were special police forces and they account for around 1.5 thousand people. There are special forces of in the army, which is called domestic forces, domestic troops. And they also have they also number of around 7,000 to 8,000 people. So anyway, it's not about the whole amount of militiamen or the whole amount of the army. Army actually sent quiet all this time. So I do not think that this is about too many people that it will endanger the future of the country.
And Lukashenko had mentioned yesterday about doing some sort of a constitution, that he would change the constitution, he would try to, all of that is just being completely disregarded. It's a stalling tactic, clearly, but there's no one is seriously contemplating that. So this really means the only way a free and fair election can happen in Belarus is if Lukashenko leaves the country. I mean, is that your understanding?
That's absolutely true. Actually, another chance may come from reinstalling the 1994 constitution, but this constitution actually does not, as I remember, it does not imply the presidential position as well. So if this constitution is back and forth, Belarus will turn into a parliamentary republic, which actually might be a very good outcome of this.
Well, and again, just thinking in the comparison of the dramatic changes that just took place of the Russian constitution and those changes, it would be quite ironic if you had the Belarusian constitution reverting in some ways back to a true parliamentary process.
That's a good point, because actually what I would like to mention to our listeners that actually for Russia, the Belarusian case is very important. First of all, not so much because of geopolitics and geoeconomics, but because for years Lukashenko implemented many measures which were replicated in Russian practice. So both Lukashenko and Putin, they reinstalled the Soviet-style insignia just within a year after they came to power. They prohibited the foreign organization from operating in the country. They turned the parliaments into a kind of, department in the presidential administration. They subjugated the courts and limited the rights for freedom and speech. And the last time was, of course, this constitutional amendments. Lukashenko did this in 1999, and these amendments in Belarus came into force in 2003. And Putin just made the same during this July 1 referendum in Russia. So he repeatedly made the same steps Lukashenko made years before. So therefore, if the regime in Belarus is dismantled, will be dismantled, it is a kind of, very strong signal to Mr. Putin and his power vertical in Russia.
It's so funny. We wrote a week and a half ago a commentary that said the Belarusian mirror on the Russian wall. Maybe it was the exact opposite. Maybe we're seeing the Russian mirror on the Belarusian wall, perhaps in a very different way. Slava, thank you so much. Your insights are so valuable. The economic dimension of this is fantastic. And of course, our thanks, and hopefully the plane has taken off, to Ambassador Valery Zepcalo safely for his insights insights as he was walking through an airport. I don't know how he did all of that, but we are grateful.
He should have a lot of meetings in Warsaw. Yeah,
I'm sure he will be eagerly sought after for his insights as well. But for our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. I tried to incorporate as many as I could in our conversation. And although we've seen 9 extraordinary days for Belarus, I have a feeling there's more extraordinary days to come. So thank you so much to our viewers. Be safe, be well, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.